Okay, my loves, welcome to the Yoga Teacher Collaborative and welcome to the weekly live show. I'm really excited to be finishing the December live ones with a guest special. So this is with the fabulous Kim Hughes, who I cannot wait for you to meet. She is a phenomenal human. And in all honesty, there's about 4 or 5 topics I would like to interview Kim on. But today we are focusing on sound healing. But before we dive into that, before you get to meet Kim, welcome. If you're new to the live show or if you're new to the podcast, welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Laura Green. I am a yoga teacher, a teacher trainer. I have been training teachers since 2018. We just had our final teacher training wrap up in our final work this year wrap up beginning of this month, which represented 114 yoga teachers trained, which I'm really a little bit proud of. It was nice to get over that 100 number. But I mentor yoga teachers in business and in teaching, and I'm just really here to help you, to help you as much as I possibly can, because I love and adore yoga and I love and adore yoga teachers. If you've been around for a while, thank you for listening. Thank you for staying tuned. Thank you for all your support in the community. But we will get into today's session, which is exploring how to use sound healing to amplify your world, to amplify yourself, to work with your own nervous system, to have this as a personal practice, also how it can amplify your students' experiences, how it might be beneficial to them, and how it can be a really useful thing to add to your business as well. And we will look a little bit into the science of sound healing as well. And I have lovely Kim with us today, who I'll introduce in a moment. But Kim runs a certification as a sound healing practitioner certification, and she does have a course coming up. So if you love this and you would want to train in sound healing, Kim is your woman, and we will share a little bit more about that as well. But to introduce Kim, I have known Kim, I think it's about 2019, 2020, that Kim first came to a day retreat, and then I had the pure joy of spending 10 months with Kim when she was doing her yoga teacher training with me back in 2021. And we have stayed in contact ever since, but through just a love of yoga together. We've just been on retreat together, or through Kim's done some mentorship work with me. And I have absolutely adored following Kim's journey. From the journey through learning to teach to opening her own beautiful studio in Leamington. And really, Kim, everything you ever put out is this amazing blend of calm, caring, elegance, and such detail and precision and professionalism in what you put out. How you market yourself is just this wonderful blend of friendly, approachable, lovable, but elegant, professional, clean, sharp. Anytime I see anything of yours, I'm just in awe, if I'm honest. So I'm delighted to be with you in this next bit of your evolution as you come into the sound healing practitioner certification, which is fabulous. So Kim, tell us a little bit about yourself as a yoga teacher, your background, before we head into the sound stuff.
Oh, thank you so much, Laura. It's so lovely to be here. And yeah, it's so nice when you hear somebody kind of reflect your own journey back at you because, reflection is such an important part of our growth, right? And I was thinking about this morning and thinking about the last 10 years, really. It's been such a huge evolution for me. I always describe my journey as one from hiding at the back of the class to becoming front and center, being the teacher, being the space holder. And really, that has really only come about by my love and my practice of yoga and a complete shift in my frequency, actually, which is really where the sound healing comes in. A real shift in how I identify and show up in this world, which is really kind of unrecognizable to the person that I showed up as kind of 10 years ago. So yeah, it's been a real kind of full journey, one that I didn't know was in me, and now just allows me to have a life that just feels so much more in flow, so much more in tune with who I am as a human being. And yeah, it's just created so much joy for me, really. So yeah.
And it's been a real privilege to see that, and to see that it's sometimes you see the journeys people take on social media and it doesn't always mirror the truth behind the scene. But to know that the journey you've been on is actually from deep work, showing up with yourself. And as you said, changing your frequency from the inside out. And then that has what's become amplified and visible to the outside world. It really has been a deep inner journey. So obviously you love yoga. You are a yoga teacher. When we look specifically at sound, I think a lot of people think that sound healing is separate to yoga, that it is a nice add-on that weaves through it, and actually maybe haven't had the opportunity to learn that nidrā yoga, yoga of sound, is as old as yoga itself. It goes right back to some of our spiritual texts. So do you have a separation in your world between Kim, the yoga teacher, Kim, the lover of yoga, and then Kim, the sound healer, sound trainer, sound practitioner? Are they separate or are they one?
Oh my goodness, no, they are such a beautiful blend, and they blend beautifully together. As yoga teachers, we share through voice, we share through vibration, we share through frequency. We invite people into our classes, and we hold space in a way that makes them feel safe and held, and allows them to transform on many levels. And sound is the same. It allows people to come in, to drop out of that analytical mind, to be in the body, to be in the being, to be in the mind, or to be in the intuitive mind, should I say, and to really allow them to come home to themselves. So no, they're very much interwoven together, and they're very much part of how I practice daily for myself as well.
That's a really good reflection back, that actually it comes all the way into how, as students of yoga, we hear the instruction through voice, and as teachers of yoga, we start with the voice. And I'd never really stripped that back to even just my spoken voice being sound healing. But I know it is. When I started teaching yoga, I was worried that I put on a yoga voice. And then over time, I've just felt actually much more confident that yes, my teaching voice has much more tonal modulation, much more rhythm modulation than my speaking voice. But I know that is creating an energy, an effect. I taught a pillow yoga class this week. I said to my students, look, I'm either just going to be white noise waffling at you, or I'm going to be singing mantras at you. But that tone, when it's just waffle in the background of a restorative, it is that white noise that is settling the nervous system. So I guess, yeah, right into our speaking voice. To
Mm.
some degree, it's already sound healing, or is that, have I leapt a little too far?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, and I think one of as yoga teachers, we are often working with we're often working with the breath, which again comes into sound healing in the way that I practice sound healing. When we chant, when we hum, there is a way of creating safety for our students from the way that we speak, and we can start there. When I run a sound healing, for example, the way that I welcome the students into the space, not only with my facial expressions but with my voice, the tonality in my voice sets the scene for what to expect as they step into the space, as they settle themselves in. And if I greet my practitioners or my guests in a voice that's really up here, and I'm all over excited and everything's kind of really, really high nervous energy, then they're going to feel that, and they're going to resonate with that vibration, which isn't what we are looking for when they are coming into a space of healing, of inner stillness, and of calm. And so we can really set the scene immediately just with the tone of our voice, with our presence, with our breath. And this is, yeah, a really fundamental part of space holding within sound.
That actually really makes me think. I know we'll talk later about the courses you've got coming up, but I know you've got a 1 day intro to sound. And again, even if someone wasn't wanting to use crystal bowls and percussion instruments, even maybe doing a 1 day immersion in sound still might get you to think about sound, vibration, your voice differently as you're becoming more consciously aware of the healing properties of sound, even if you experience it through bowls, and then translate that to your voice.
Yes, and there is. I think I was just thinking as you were speaking there. This week I've also run my kind of final classes. I've got one more yoga class, and this week at the end of class, all I've done, they've been very restorative. All I've done at the end of class is to play a little zephyr chime, walk around the room, and every single class, bar one, somebody has said to me afterwards, what was that incredible noise that was at the end? I felt that felt so enchanting, and I felt so relaxed, and I really enjoyed that sound. What was it? And so interweaving sound into our yoga classes can be very, very simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. But I think it really helps to have an understanding of sound, of frequency, of what it does, and how it can really shift somebody and make a difference for them.
Sound is transformative. It takes us on a journey as well. So coming back, when was the first time that you remember experiencing something akin to traditional sound healing with instruments?
So I remember this really, really clearly. It was about 8 or 9 years ago, and it's looking back. It's an interesting experience, and I think all of these kind of shape how you move forwards as well. So it was I'd been invited. Somebody kind of randomly. It was a yoga teacher. She said somebody else is coming to my house to teach a class, and there's going to be a sound bath there, and I didn't really know what that was. I went along. There were two ladies there with these enormous gongs. I'd never heard them play, and we had our yoga class, and interspersed with that was gong playing. And I felt it really deeply. I couldn't understand what I was feeling or why I was feeling it. And one of the reflections that I've brought forward from that is that actually nobody told me what was going on. And I had no idea what to expect. I laid down, these instruments were played. I knew they felt incredible, but I didn't really understand why or what was happening. And I would reflect back now that I didn't necessarily feel particularly safe in that space. And I think that's really, really crucial when we work with sound, is that we want to create a space that allows our participants to feel as safe and held as possible. That was my first experience of sound. And then I kind of moved on from that. I moved on from that and tried different sound baths. There was one that was being held locally in just a little village hall, and I tried that one out. And then over the years, I've just tried different sound baths with different instruments, and some resonate more than others with me. I think a little bit actually like yoga teaching. Maybe you try a sound bath and you're like, no, it's not for me. I don't like it. But I would always say, as we would with yoga, don't rule that out. There's a sound for everybody. There's a frequency for everybody. And so, yes, sometimes I think it can be a little bit about exploring, trying different sound baths, trying different teachers, different hosts. Again, we want to find that energetic connection between us and those that are teaching us. So that was really where my journey kind of started with sound, was 8 or 9 years ago when I think about it.
You raised so many amazing points then, and I think yes, not knowing what a sound bath is, or not knowing what to expect, and not having it quite guided enough, or signposted enough is really common. And I think there's an easy misunderstanding in the name sound bath as well, and a lot of the marketing, that it will be really calming and really relaxing like a bath, rather than actually it being therapeutic. And just as in a yoga class, some parts are hard, some parts develop a resilience. It's not always just a very long savāsana with nice sounds. And I remember I was teaching a yoga retreat in Goa at a retreat center, and there was other offerings, other people there, and they had a whiteboard or blackboard that listed the evening's additional activities. And it said that, this was back in, I think, 2017, and it said on there, gong bath. And I saw these two girls walk past, and one said to the other, "Oh, I wonder what a gong bath is." And the other said, "Oh, we'll just be doing qigong." Like,
Oh, brilliant.
we just presume, we see words and make a presumption. And I never heard the end of that story. I never know if those two girls went and wondered why they weren't doing qigong and why there were massive gongs. But I think when you are familiar with something and what you are aware of, you see more of. So now we're aware of sound healing. It can seem like it's everywhere, but actually that's because we're in that circle. Whereas to our students, they could still be in that, I have no idea what this is. Am I going to lie in a bath? Is it relaxing? I have literally no idea. So I think a little bit more guiding on what to expect could be beneficial.
Yeah, I actually once I'd qualified, one of the first sort of full sound healing sessions that I gave, a student who was already a yoga student actually came to that. So she'd, before the sound bath, had been able to ask me some questions, and she said that she'd been to one previously, and I guess she'd had a similar experience to me. She'd laid down, she'd put on an eye pillow, she wasn't really sure what was going to happen, and she said, "I felt really unsettled because suddenly the sound healer started walking around, and I could hear all these things kind of being wafted over me, all these instruments, and I didn't really know what was going on. And also I was really uncomfortable, and I wanted to move, but I didn't know
Yes.
if I should move, and I just stayed kind of rigid, and I was really uncomfortable the whole time." And actually, I mean, she did me the greatest service in telling me that before. It's just a coincidence, really, because I've really held that in my mind of, actually, however many times we hold these spaces, we need to each and every time make sure that all of our participants understand what to expect, so that they stand the best possible chance of relaxing, of feeling that they can let go of the external world, that they can just be held in that experience. So I think, yeah, it's a really good point, because we can become a little bit yes, because we are in that space all of the time, we can assume that everybody understands what it is that they are going to receive, and it can be very tempting just to kind of bypass all of those kind of critical, settling details.
And especially the lying on the back for the whole time. I actually I move in sound baths. I'll be in child's pose, I'll be in pigeon, I'll always be in something still and undisruptive. But I really, really enjoy feeling different parts of my body in connection to the floor and feeling the vibration of the sound coming through the floor, like just even lying on the tummy. So I feel the vibration of the sound from the floor more into my heart and my belly and the front of my pelvis. I really love exploring it in different shapes. So the next thing I really wanted to explore with you was having a personal sound healing journey, a personal sadhana, personal self-healing, because, I did a 3-day sound healing course in Rishikesh, which is where I bought my bowls. And then I bought my bowls. I learned how to use the bowls. I think we predominantly spoke about philosophy, if I'm honest. And then I came back and I started playing them in class. And then when I don't play them in class, they live in a nice little box on my shelf. And I think many people like that. We're like, oh no, this is something I do for other people. And if I wanted sound healing, I would go to a sound bath, or I would go and have a one-to-one with somebody. the idea that you could do sound healing on yourself, especially with bowls and things, never really came to my mind. I will do vocal toning to myself because I'm using the instrument inside of my voice. I kind of get that connection. I really never thought about playing more traditional sound healing like bowls for myself. I would love to learn more about that.
So, I mean, that's such a great point, and I think that's a really typical way that we do work with sound. It's yes, we learn it, then we share it with others, and we forget about what drew us into sound in the first place. You know, it's a little bit like being a yoga teacher and then suddenly abandoning your own yoga practice. You know, it's
Yeah.
actually, you know, this is the beauty. This is what drew you in. This is what you love. This is what you want to share. Why are you not indulging in that yourself as regularly as possible? So for me, I usually interweave the bowls in my morning practice anyway, but I do pick up the bowls very frequently throughout the day. You know, they're always around with me. I've got one on my desk over there. I've got a crystal bowl there. I've got some Himalayan bowls over there, and I will just pick them up and play them, and they will just settle me. They will help me to drop into my body, to bring me back into presence. But my kind of regular practice in the morning would be something along the lines of some sort of vocal toning. I really enjoy doing that myself, and then I will and then I will usually bring out a bowl and I will play the bowl. And when I play the bowl, that's usually for me when I will take a little bit of kind of mental rehearsal for the day. You know, I'm always kind of, what is the frequency? What is the energetic posture that I want to embody today? How am I going to move through this day? You know, how am I speaking to others? How am I showing up? How do I want to show up on social media? And I want to be in that vibrational energy that I want to come into the day with, and that I want to share from. And this has been a practice. But now it just comes really, really easily. And you know, if ever there is any kind of fear, doubt, what am I going to post on social media, for example, it's like, sit with the bowls, okay, tune in. What does that version of me want to share? Oh, okay, she wants to share this, you know, and I come in from it from that angle. And then from there, after I've played my bowls, then I just sit in silence. And there is a real beauty and power in silence. And that for me has been something that again has been a bit of a journey, and something that I have lent into actually more and more, even in the last year, to be able to really sit in silence and in presence and in the pause. And I find that incredibly powerful. And that for me really sets me up beautifully for the day. But, you know, I always keep the bowls out with me, and I'm always, you know, just having a little bit of sound. You know, what is the energy I want to feel? Something's not feeling quite right. I need to shift. And yeah, I mean, they bring me so much joy. I mean, they're just, you know, the crystal bowls that I have are just these beautiful, colourful beauties anyway, you know, and they just make me smile every time I see them. I'm just like, they have just a gorgeous colour and aura about them anyway. So kind of what's not to love.
I don't know why I found this such a huge shift and really eye-opening to have this conversation. And I think it's because it's so multi-layered. It's that idea of, can you sit with the bowls or whatever the instrument is and be the doer and receiver? I'm like, why did it not come naturally to do sound healing for myself? And I think it's because when I do my own meditation, when I do my own breath work, when I do my own asana, it's all within my body. So then I feel when something external, oh, I am the doer. I am the player of that bowl. And I hadn't actually thought, how can I be the physical doer? I am playing that bowl and also the receiver. And that seems so basic, Kim. Yeah, you've just given me quite a little aha moment with that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, they they are meant to be played.
Mm,
That's what that's what we have them for, is to play them and to connect with them. And the other thing I would say about that is that the more you play them, the more you connect with them. I
of
know
course.
them so well. I talk about them as if they're friends. I mean, Justin, my husband, kind of thinks I'm a bit nuts, but when I go and take them to events, I will say we're going to a sound we're going to an event, and I'm taking the bowls, we're going together. We're connected.
Mm. And that only comes from time sitting with them. But yeah, I think there really is something there with being the doer and being the receiver, and the idea that music isn't and sound isn't just for someone else. I'm a classical musician. I've been playing the concert harp since I was 7 years old. That is my first love. I'm really I can't think of the word, capable classical musician. And I've always played for others. And even now, I need a reason to play for others to find the motivation to practice. It's the only reason I still do weddings, still do charity events, is because that gives me the motivation to go and play the harp. I love music, but I see music and me playing the harp oddly separate. I don't ever actually go and sit and play for me. I play for somebody else. And I don't know if that's just because the harp sounds beautiful and people love to listen to it, but it is brutal to play. Like, it slashes your fingers, you get blood blisters, and you lose the skin on your fingers. It gives you backache. It uses way too much brain capacity. So I don't know if that's maybe where the divide started to happen, because I play an instrument that causes my physical body harm.
Mm.
So therefore, to think about playing for me, I honestly, it's quite profound for me. Me and my harp are going to have to go and have a little chit chat about, why do I see you as something I bleed for to please other people for?
Yeah, that's so interesting, isn't it? Yeah, really interesting
Mm,
reflection. I love that.
yeah, maybe I should find some nicer pieces to play that don't blister my fingers. Maybe, maybe that's
Yeah.
that. Okay. So I loved hearing about your personal sound healing and what that could look like as a journey in that daily practice. So then, if someone was to say, okay, I've felt the sound for me, I've started exploring sound healing as a healing practice for myself, I feel called to share it, but I don't want to start a whole nother business as a sound healer.
Mm.
What are ways that you could bring Nada yoga, the yoga of sound, into our existing offerings?
So, I mean, when I started, I mean, I did take my practitioner training before I started introducing the bowls into my classes. Um, but I started really, really simply, and as I reflected earlier, you can start as simply as with a chime. It doesn't have to be anything. Anything complicated, to just have that little sound at the end of a session, just at the very end of a session. Often we will introduce things like chimes or rattles, the little seed shakers, and we sometimes call them pattern breakers. They're a way of re-alerting the nervous system and just letting it know that there's something's going to change, so it can help to bring us back out of, for example, our savāsana. So that's a really nice way just to introduce sound and to become a little bit confident with sharing some sound. And as I mentioned earlier, people really enjoy that. It's not something that they're necessarily familiar with, so it can be really interesting for them to experience that. But when I started introducing sound into, first of all, my yoga classes a little bit more, I did start in shavasana. I would just have one bowl and I would just play one bowl at the end, because actually I felt more confident actually just playing one bowl. I didn't have to think too much. I could just play the bowl, share the bowl, bring people back bring people back into the space, and that's a really beautiful way of sharing sound. And then for me, I gradually kind of brought that in. People were kind of asking questions. So then I sort of thought, oh, maybe I'll do a restorative yoga session. And, you know, I kind of did half, which was a little bit of movement, a little bit of restorative. And then we kind of ended up in a yoga nidrā, and then I would play the bowls, you know, and I kind of started off small and kind of grew from there. And that's also a really nice way of introducing sound. You know, now my sessions are, you know, they're kind of fuller sound sessions. Where I don't necessarily, I was going to say I don't necessarily bring yoga in, but you know what? The philosophy of yoga is often there. You know, I did a sound session the other week, which was very much rooted around some of the philosophy of yoga. So both are kind of interconnected. So, you know, I don't think you necessarily have to have a completely separate arm of your business to be a sound healer. You know, you can be a yoga teacher that includes some sound at the end of their yoga class, and that can be a really beautiful way for people to experience an energy, a frequency that they are not necessarily familiar with.
And how, you know, what do you think the benefits are, like from the science of sound? What are the benefits that your students are receiving when you bring sound in this way into a class?
So I think, you know, one of perhaps the most obvious or the easiest to explain is just that shift in our nervous system regulation. And, you know, again, as yoga teachers, we're very aware of our nervous system, and that often our students either come in that kind of hyper vigilant state, where they are kind of in that overactive, overthinking state, or they can sometimes come in where they've kind of checked out, where they're just kind of emotionally drained, exhausted. And sound has the power to really help to shift our frequency, and we could talk about that in terms of our brainwave states, actually. And if you share yoga nidra, you're probably people are probably already familiar with brainwave states, and that when we are in this more active brainwave state, which we are in most of the day, which is our beta brainwave state, a faster brainwave state. We spend a lot of time there, actually, and we don't really give our bodies an awful lot of opportunity to shift from there once we are awake. We are either kind of awake in that state, in that beta brainwave state, or we're asleep. But there are these two beautiful states in between that, which are alpha and theta, where we're in this much more meditative, calm, healing space. And it really is where the body has this opportunity to come back into balance, come back into, we call it homeostasis, where the body is in a much more coherent state and much more able to heal. You know, we really don't give ourselves the opportunity to heal. We wait until something goes wrong and we're not feeling great already. Whereas actually, you know, if we can really learn or allow our students that opportunity to regulate their nervous system, and the bowls can be received in whatever way the body is ready to receive those frequencies. There is something called resonance, or sometimes called sympathetic resonance, which is where one vibrating object, which in this case we might say the bowls, which have this really lovely calming, grounding energy about them, and they encourage another vibrating object, which in this case can be us, into resonance with them, into harmony, and you know, and we feel that in a sound bath. You know, we feel that shift in energy. We come in one energetic state and we leave in another. So there are many ways that we can explain how the bowls work. Some of them are a bit more what should we say, mythical than others. But, you know, the really lovely thing, and one of the things I like, and I love that in yoga as well, is, you know, there are so many practices and philosophies and ways that people have healed historically over thousands and thousands of years. And now we are starting to find some science to back this up. And I'm always just sat there kind of going, you knew
Mm,
all this
mm,
time, you know, and now and I, you know, I love science. I love the science. I'm always asking why. You know, if somebody tells me something, I want to know why. But one of the things that I have learned, certainly over this kind of real sort of 10-year journey, is to also kind of embrace the not knowing
mm,
and to be okay with just trusting how it feels.
mm.
And this feels good.
What is the science of my own experience? Okay,
Yeah,
this was the experience I had.
yeah.
And that is the science from the laboratory of my body and mind. I love what you just said about having those moments to come into those two different brainwave states during the day, which made me think right back to how you said, you know, you will take a little sound break in
Mm,
the middle of your day, just like we might take a little snack break. But that is a moment in the day where you're punctuating that beta brainwave state and having those opportunities that really beautifully tied back to how you use sound in your personal personal practice in your day.
And I think the other thing as well is, you know, when we are slowing down into those slower brainwave states, you know, this is where we can start to access our intuition. You know, when the logical mind and all of that chatter starts to dissipate, and we
Mm,
can tune into what our kind of heart and wisdom are telling
mm,
us. And this was something that I really struggled with for so many years. You know, I led my entire life from logic, control, will this work? I must have a definite outcome to this. Whereas now, you know, what sound and yoga have both brought to me is this ability to kind of go inwards, to tune into, okay, if I could absolutely trust that everything was going to work out as I would like it to, what would I be doing? How would I be showing up? How would I be moving through this world? Um, and that doesn't mean, you know, never taking any steps to back that up, but coming from that place of, I know, like I know that this is what I want to share and this is how I want to share it. And that comes from slowing down and having and taking the time to tune in, away from the noise, away from what everybody else is telling me, suggesting to me. And that's made a huge difference to not just how I show up in my business, but also how it feels to be in my business.
mm,
That's made a huge difference to me. And I've run businesses for a long, long time. You know, I for nearly 30 years, I was a trained accountant. And the way that I run this business is very different to the way that I ran that business. And to a
mm,
certain extent, it kind of needs to be. But I wanted this to feel good. It needed to
mm.
feel good, you know.
And I think, yeah, that's amazing to see how actually wisdom, intuition, how you feel in your business can all be absolutely a connection with brainwave states as well. And how many of our students struggle to connect to their intuition, struggle to connect to their inner wisdom. Maybe we weave a little bit of journaling into a practice, but there's a struggle, there's a blank page. And yes, we've got pranayama, yes, we've got meditation, yes, we've got yoga nidrā, all these things that can help shift brainwave states, but even just layering in sound healing into moments in the class, maybe before a reflective meditation, maybe before journaling. So you're actively working with the brainwave state to enable someone to experience the intuition, inner wisdom more easily, because maybe they were just struggling because they were still in their beta brainwave state.
And I think the other thing around that is that a lot of people feel will come to class and say that they feel exhausted or lacking in energy, and actually not being able to trust yourself. is an energetic drain. You know, I was thinking the other day about, you know, kind of like an example of that. You know, it's a little bit like, you know, if you were to decide to run a day retreat in for summer solstice, and you're like, I really want to run this day retreat. It's going to be amazing. This is what I'm going to share. This is going to be beautiful. Everybody's going to walk away with X, Y, or Z. It's going to feel wonderful. And then your logical brain kind of comes in and goes, yeah, but loads of people are going to be sharing day retreats on that day. You know, don't do it then, or everybody's going to be away in June. That's a really bad time to do it. And there's this real kind of energetic exhaustion that happens where you kind of flip-flop between, but I want to do it, but I don't think I should, and it's a huge energy drain. And you know, there was a few years ago, I say this because I've been there, where I decided I was going to run something, and I went and I had all the social media posts, and I was all ready to run, and then I started questioning it, and I was changing my mind, and I ended up rewriting everything and putting all new dates on it, and then I ended up in the end going with the original one anyway. So I've been this enormous kind of this enormous expenditure of energy, and I'd ended up back exactly where I'd started anyway, because it was what my gut, what my heart was telling me I wanted to share, and was what people would enjoy to receive. So I also feel that there is some gravitas in leaning into that as well, in understanding how frequency and just slowing down and being connected and staying connected can impact so many parts of our lives and of our world.
So now, if you were finding yourself in that moment again and you could feel the brain kicking in, is that one of the moments you would just grab a bowl and go, right, time to do some sound healing? And then that would give you clarity. And I guess at the end of it, you might go, yeah, the right decision is to move or cancel this. Or no, the right decision is to stick with it.
Yeah, it is absolutely. It is to let go of the analytical mind to a certain degree, and kind of come in with, okay, if I know that whatever I choose is going to be the right decision, you know, yeah, I may have made it from, you know, there may have been some business logic coming in there. That's okay too. But, you know, if I make this decision, is this really feeling like the right decision for me? Yes, it is. Okay. No need to think about it anymore. Let's go. Let's move with that, rather than keep kind of flip-flopping back and forth. And that's for me one of the things that the bowls have really brought me is trust. I mean, I probably have to say, Laura, though, you know, one of the things that you taught us when we were first doing our yoga teacher training was one of the things that you said to me, which has stuck with me, and I say it now really with the bowls, is, you know, trust in yoga, and trust in the and I trust in the bowls. You know, I trust that if I spend some time with them, that if I tune in, that if I connect, that the right wisdom will come through.
And then that is a bridge to the trusting of yourself. And this is something we're really exploring in Devotion, the postgraduate teacher training, is, the end of first teacher training, I'm like, trusting yoga. As you develop your confidence, don't worry about that. Trusting yoga, you know, yoga works. But that's definitely the beginning of the journey, isn't it? And then when you trust in yoga, as your own self-trust is building, and that's such a big topic in Devotion, is self-trust. It's really interesting, this connection with the nervous system. So moving to what's happening next for you is, obviously you've got two lovely offerings coming up. One being an intro to sound, which I believe is a 1-day immersive introduction to sound, to the bowls at your beautiful studio in Lymington. And then you've got a 3-day sound healing practitioner certification coming up at the end of February. I'd love to understand a little bit more about those two offerings.
So yes, so we have a lovely space at our home in Lymington, and actually, as you sort of briefly touched on, I came to India with you earlier in the year, and whilst we were there, my lovely husband expanded our studio space. So and it's beautiful, and everybody that comes in just says it's such a calming oasis, and I always say it was built with love, and so it always feels like a really lovely space to invite people to. And so the introduction to sound, which is the one that's in January, that's a 1 day training. It's an immersive day, an opportunity for people to come play the bowls. I'll have the crystal bowls there, I'll have the Himalayan bowls, the metal bowls there, some of the percussion instruments. So it's a day when people can come explore. You don't have to have your own instruments to come to that one. You can share mine, and we do touch to a certain degree on some of the science, because I think that's important that you understand why you are sharing sound, what is happening in the body from a scientific perspective, but also to just become comfortable with sound and to create your own practice with sound, so that you can start to weave that into your own world in whatever way that looks like. As I say, whether it's just a seed shaker to begin with, or maybe it's a bowl, to introduce sound into your everyday practice.
When in January is that?
That is the 24th of January. 24th of January, yeah, sooner than you think.
And then someone might come to that on their own, or someone might choose to do that and then the 3 day immersion, or just do the 3 day immersion on its own. So what is the 3 day immersive certificate training?
So that is the Sound Healer Practitioner Certification, which is accredited by the IPHM, the International Practitioners of Holistic Medicine. I never quite get those words in the right order. I think I've got that right. But so that is an internationally accredited certification. So we do go much deeper with that one. So it's 3 days in person at the studio. They're consecutive days, 27th of February to the 1st of March. And then when we follow that up though with 4 weeks of integration. So there are case studies for this one. There is a what is more of a reflective theory paper, because one of the things that I do really feel is important is that we are an embodiment of what we share. So I really want to encourage students to indulge in that following month, creating their own practice, being connected to their own instruments. But this is very much, we go deeper, we kind of look at contraindications much more deeply. We look at, we go a little bit more deeply into the science. We look at how to bring sound into your offerings, whether that's as a standalone or whether that's part of another business. You might be a yoga teacher or a Reiki practitioner. And so, I'm really excited. I'm really excited about this one, because I really, when I was trying to decide how I wanted this to look and how I wanted it to run, I wanted it to be short enough that you can kind of get going, but long enough that you feel supported, that that you aren't just there for a couple of days and then you're off on your own. I want to be there, support you to integrate what you've learnt, and to share it, because I don't want you to come to the training and then never play a ball,
do nothing with it.
I want you to share. So that's the certification, and so obviously you can be insured with that and all of those sorts of really important things as well.
No, they sound wonderful, and just to be with you in your space in the delightful world of sound healing, it's just going to be a magical 1 day or 3 days, whichever one somebody opts for. And Lymington, obviously it's in Hampshire in the New Forest, but it's by the sea. It is the most beautiful part of England. So it's full of lots of Airbnbs, B&Bs, hotels, loads of things there. So thank you so much for sharing. Kim, if somebody wanted to find out more about these two courses, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
So my website is wellbeingwithkim.com.
I'll make sure
There
to
is
share
a
that.
little section for trainings, for sound trainings on there. And I on Instagram, I'm wellbeingwithkim underscore. And I also have Bluebird Sound School, which is my training school, which is, I got married earlier in the year and my surname is actually now Bird. So I kind of had to have Bird in the title.
Ah,
That's
of
why,
course,
one of the reasons.
of course. So, well-being with Kim underscore or Bluebird Sound.
Sound School.
Bluebird Sound School. I will make sure to link all of those as well. I'll put them in Facebook. I'll put them in the show notes as well if you're on Spotify. But my love, thank you so much for sharing this. My huge takeaway is the personal practice. I will, especially now I've got a good long break, spend some loving time with my harp. It needs some strings replaced as well. But even then, I was like, no, I really should replace the strings over Christmas because, all the relatives are going to want me to play Christmas carols on the harp. It was already that, like,
Ooh.
versus what's something I want to play that's for me. So thank you for
Wow.
my homework as well. Anything final that you wanted to add, my love?
No, not great. Oh, the other thing I am doing is on the 31st of December, so New Year's Eve, but in the morning at 10 o'clock, I am running a virtual sound healing session. So I'm running that as well. Anybody's welcome. It's free. Come along. We'll set some intentions, work with the bowls, feel their energy. So yeah, I also have that.
Sounds lovely. Well, nice thing to do on New Year's Eve. Well, thank you very much, my love, for being here. Everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the podcast through the year. We'll give you some replays of old ones over the Christmas break so that if you are bored of listening to Coronation Street or whatever anybody else is meant to watch over Christmas, you can just listen to some podcasts instead. Otherwise, Kim, thank you very much, my love, and we'll catch you all soon. Bye for
Thank you
now.
so much. Bye.